Welcome to Uncanny Japan. I'm author Teresa Matsura, and I'm here to share with you all the hidden and more obscure corners of Japan. Join me as we explore strange superstitions, curious creatures, and cultural enigmas. Here, come and walk with me along this beach. See that large sea turtle over there? Go ahead and climb on its back. Don't worry, it's not a normal sea turtle. Never ever climb onto the back of a normal sea turtle. That would be terribly mean. But this one's magical. You know how I know? He talks. Watch.
Get on!
See? I'll climb on mine. Today, let's journey down to the bottom of the ocean. Down, down, down to an underwater dragon palace called the Ryugu, or sometimes Ryugu-jō. It's owned and lorded over by Ryūjin, the dragon god. And while we're there, let's learn more about all the myth and lore surrounding him and how you can personally connect with the spirit of the dragon god if you want. Down, down, down. Still going down. There it is over there, rising beautifully luminescent in the utter blackness on the ocean floor. The Dragon Palace, the Ryugu-jō. It's been described in different ways through the centuries, all of them emphasizing its majesty and magnificence. Sometimes it's said to shimmer with iridescent fish scales, other times made entirely of red and white coral. And then there are descriptions of it being built of silver and gemstones. I see today we have a gorgeous combination of all of those. You'll notice going into the Ryugu-jō, there are a lot of other sea turtles and schools of colorful fish, an octopus and jellyfish or two. Those are all the dragon god's servants. Oh, and look over there, lounging on that sofa made of sea sponges, with her long black hair and horns. Yes, she's a little frightening looking, but she's kind of a mermaid, Ningyo, and acts as a messenger to the dragon god. There are two types, actually, the Jinja Hime, shrine princess, and the Hime Uo, princess fish. They're known as Yogenju, prophetic beasts. That's because every once in a while, Ryūjin sends one of them up to the Japanese coast to foretell future events. Anything from droughts, bumper crops, epidemics, and even outbreaks of war. So remember next time a 20-foot, 6-meter-long, snake-like creature with the head of an angry woman, complete with flowing hair, 2 horns or antlers, appears on your beach. Before you go screaming and running away, hear her out. Now that we're inside the Dragon Palace, did you know that every one of the 4 sides faces a different season? If you want to experience spring, go that way. Winter over there. Summer is that direction. Let's go and enjoy autumn and talk more about dragons and dragon gods. A brief brush-up on dragons in general. They're more snake-like in Asia than their Western counterparts. They don't have wings either, well, usually. Sometimes they do. They're associated with water, so you'll find them living not only in the ocean, but in lakes, rivers, waterfalls, caves that have water in there somewhere, or in the heavens, because that's where rain is made. I think we can all agree that Ryu dragons are incredibly powerful and majestic and all around badass. So you can understand why they're so revered here in Japan. Here's some things they can do. Seeing as how they are connected to water, they can control rainfall, snowfall, storms, tides, anything water-related. But it's not just water. They've got their claws in land, too. Dragons are thought to protect the earth. There is something called Ryūmyaku, or dragon veins. These are invisible ki or energy pathways that wind through the earth. If a town or city is built on one of these, it will flourish. Where two dragon veins cross is even more auspicious. You'll often find shrines and temples built on these powerful spots. So dragons are lucky, attract positive energy, and can bring wealth and prosperity. They're also guardians, warding off evil spirits. And it doesn't stop there. Ryu embodies strength, wisdom, and longevity. They've got it all. So that's Japanese dragons in general. But today we're talking about Ryūjin, the dragon god who lives under the sea. He does all of the above, but add to that, he can transform so as to appear as a dragon, or half human, half dragon, or all human, or human with dragon characteristics. He carries with him two large round jewels that he uses to control the tides, and he grants wishes. You may have learned about Ryūjin from the children's tale, Urashima Taro, the story of a young man who rides on his own magical sea turtle and travels to the dragon palace. He has an adventure, returns home, and bad things happen. If you don't know the story, you can find it online. There are quite a few different versions. I think I'm going to retell it as a bedtime story for patrons. There's an idea. Anyway, if you've ever heard of the Shinto deity Watatsumi or O Watatsumi, who is mentioned in both the ancient texts, the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki, as well as a character in One Piece, Watatsumi, he's the same guy as Ryūjin. At least it's widely agreed upon that Ryūjin is a newer version of this ancient god of the sea. And Ryūjin has a daughter, the very beautiful and lovely Otohime, Princess Oto. Or, if you're going by the older myths, she's called Toyotama Hime. Okay, follow me for a second. Toyotama Hime married Hori, the great-grandson of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and supreme Shinto deity. So Toyotama, the dragon god's daughter, and Hori had one son, Ugaya Fukiaizu no Mikoto, my favorite Shinto god name ever. It means divine one of the unfinished thatched roof of grass and cormorant feathers. It's a long story. Anyway, Ugaya Fukiaizu is the father of Jimmu, the first emperor of Japan. So, that makes all the emperors throughout Japanese history not only connected to the sun goddess, they also have a little dragon blood in their veins. Speaking of Otohime, there is or was, I can't find much about it now to see if it's still in existence, but there was this woman named Fujita Himiko, who after a very difficult childhood and early adulthood, working long hours in factories just to get by, suddenly felt the pull to religion. At 35, she began studying Shugendo, a blend of Shinto and Buddhism. Then she went to study Tibetan Lamaism in India for a while. She returned to Japan and in 1973 visited a shrine and had a mystical experience where the deity, Otohime, entered her body and became one with her. Then she turned to Shinto, studied hard, was given the title Kamimiko, or Divine Shamaness, in 1981, and that's when she proclaimed that she was the Shinto goddess and dragon god's daughter, Otohime incarnate. She went on to start a very niche sect of Shinto, where she believed all kinds of interesting and sometimes odd things. Once she wrote, "Man is human, but woman is divine. Men, therefore, should respect women and learn from them." All right, she got something there. But this Otohime goddess woman seemed to at one point have some serious followers, not sure how many. She traveled around the world, studied other religions, and kind of incorporated the gods she found into her own beliefs. She got a little statue of Jesus, declared that he was some Shinto god or another, and got permission to display it in her own little shrine in Osaka. So that was a fun afternoon learning all about that. But I think the whole sect might have dissolved since I don't think she's alive anymore. There's a dearth of information online. But it all segues into what I'm going to talk about next. So we know that dragons in general are symbols of power, wisdom, and protection, and that Ryūjin specifically does all that and is the dragon god who lives under the sea. We know that you can find depictions of dragons in both shrines and temples. At shrines, almost always you'll find the teimizuya, where you wash your hands before entering the grounds, is a dragon with water coming out of its mouth. In temples, you'll find dragons lurking carved into the rafters or painted on ceilings. On the Buddhist side of things, these wouldn't be from the mythological beginnings as told in the Kojiki or Nihon Shoki, but from Indian Buddhism that passed through China and made it to Japan. The Naga are powerful serpents or snake-like beings, also associated with water and protectors of the Buddha himself and his teachings. Back to the dragon god. What blew my mind is what I learned when researching the book of Japanese folklore, and that's that there is something called a Ryūjin Shinko, or dragon god faith. It's a little mysterious and maybe not so well known, and it seems to be followed mostly by farmers and fishermen, praying to and conducting rituals for Ryūjin to please bring rain or to keep the seas calm. You'll find shrines all over Japan dedicated to Ryūjin, as well as festivals. So I thought all this dragon love was a centuries-old belief. But then I looked around and see dragons, as well as Ryūjin, all over the place, like in everyday life. Talismans, figurines, wall hangings. When you look, they just kind of pop out at you. And I've learned you don't have to be a part of any dragon god faith to ask for Ryūjin's help or invite the spirit of Ryūjin into your life. I didn't know this before today's episode, but there's something called a Ryūjin Hamaya, or dragon god evil-destroying arrow. A Hamaya is your basic evil-destroying arrow. Those can be bought at shrines and temples, especially around the new year. They're made of wood and look just like a fancy arrow. The idea being the evil-destroying bow, the Hamayumi, is symbolically held by an unseen god who shoots your Hamaya arrow into whatever bad luck or evil that is afflicting you. It's like breaking a spell. The arrow not only breaks the evil, it also purifies it and all other bad intentions directed your way. I really like this imagery. So a Ryūjin Hamaya, dragon god evil-destroying arrow, is special. It's a golden arrow, about 1 foot in length, with a thin dragon spiraling up to the tip. It's extra powerful. If you keep one near your front door or on your altar, It not only wards off bad luck, but grants wishes. If you keep one in your living room with the arrow tip pointing up, your luck will keep improving. Where a regular evil-destroying arrow works for only a year, then you have to return it to the temple or shrine and have it disposed of properly and get a new one. The Ryūjin Hamaya lasts forever. There is also a dragon god prayer called Ryūjin Norito. A Norito is a Shinto prayer to a kami, god or spirit. They have a particular sound and rhythm to them, and they're usually written in old Japanese and difficult for even Japanese people to understand. I'll put a link to one up in the transcripts of this episode so you can hear it. There is also another prayer that is just reciting the names of 8 great dragon kings. Chanting them in the correct order is supposed to be very powerful. So some things to keep in mind if you're courting that powerful dragon god, protecting and wish-granting energy. Ryūjin doesn't like metal. This is a big deal for fishermen or anyone who works near the sea. Never drop anything metal into the water. That will anger the dragon god, and he'll rustle up a horrible storm. It's not uncommon in Japan to see a figurine or little statue of a dragon, especially on a table or shelf in the entryway of a house. The front door is where energy and spirits come and leave, so it's important to keep it clean, neat, and decorated with lucky items. A dragon statuette being one of those lucky items. And to further invite Ryūjin into your home, keep in mind that he loves round, shiny things like crystal balls or a bowl full of marbles next to your dragon figurine. Maybe they remind him of the tide-changing jewels he carries around. You know something else that Ryūjin and dragons are crazy about? Sparrows. They like to eat them, evidently. Whatever you do, don't serve up sparrows. But a Shinto priest encouraged that if a sparrow nests under the eaves of your home, just let them be. A passing dragon might stop by for a snack and decide to hang out at your house, bringing with it all that good luck, wish-granting, and evil-busting power with it. Okay, one more. By the old Japanese clock, where the day is divided into the 12 zodiac animals, dragon time is from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. In those hours, 8 is considered peak dragon time. Since dragons are long and serpentine, they are often depicted making the figure 8 with their bodies, the infinity sign. Remember, they're also symbols of longevity too. So if you see a lot of 8s around you, a license plate number, or you glance at the clock and it's 8:08 or 8:18, there are some who say that that means a dragon is nearby, trying to get your attention or protecting you. Now it's time to climb back on our magical sea turtles and travel up to the surface. A little side note, if you want to come back again, you don't necessarily have to go to the ocean to visit the Dragon Palace. There are tales of secret access points in lakes, rivers, and caves, but you do have to wait to be invited. Venturing off willy-nilly into those places is very dangerous. Up, 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 almost to the surface, as it's still a bit of a ride. Real quick, since today we've talked about dragons, all 6 issues of the amazing comic series Knights vs. Samurai, written by David Dastmalchian, art by Fede Mele, and some consulting by yours truly, are out now. In these pages, you'll meet the iconic Ginkiyo-hime. Yes, she's a wickedly cool dragon who lives in a damp cave up in Hokkaido. Knights vs. Samurai is published by Image Comics Find it in your local comic book store. Ask them to order more if it's sold out, or go ahead and buy it online. Gorgeous art and a heartfelt, breathtaking story.
Alright, you can get off now.
Thank you so much for listening to Uncanny Japan. If you enjoy learning about these more elusive topics with me, I'd love to invite you into more of my uncanny world. For exclusive content and monthly bedtime stories read by me, consider joining my Patreon community. Then there are my books. The Book of Japanese Folklore is a small, beautifully illustrated encyclopedia and deep dive into 45 yokai and mythical figures. My horror short story collection, The Carp-Faced Boy and Other Tales, now has an audio version, also read by me and perfect to fall asleep to. And coming out in November is the Yokai Oracle deck. 60 yokai matched with wise Japanese idioms, phrases, and those extremely nuanced words that have no equivalent in English, but you've always wanted to know how to say. You can pre-order those if you'd like. There's a clickable thumbnail on the Uncanny Japan website labeled Oracle Cards. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe and well, and I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks.